Hello, Caviar Dreamers.
Hello, Caviar Dreamers.
We are here for another week.
Another week of fabulous entrepreneurship with Kara Goldin of Hint Water.
And again, someone that saw a need in the market to solve one of her own problems that she was getting incredibly unhealthy from diet sodas.
Yeah, diet soda makes you fat, people.
Yeah,
and keeps you unhealthy.
Very bad. And as we saw from other people that have come on the podcast.
Bella said it makes you unhealthy also.
Bella's very against diet soda.
She does not drink diet soda.
Not at all.
She keeps her spelt figure of 6 pounds by not drinking diet soda. And
she really drinks only water.
She only drinks water.
But she might like it flavored with apple.
Yeah, I should get her the Hint Water. But anyway, Kara Goldin, in all seriousness, and she just came out with an amazing book called Undaunted, which is about the doubt and doubters.
It is, and she is a female CEO, which is a rarity.
Yes, and her company is still privately owned.
So she has a lot of great advice.
Yeah, great advice. So inspirational. I'm so excited to have her on.
Kara, hi.
Hi.
We are so excited. We are here with Hint Water founder, Kara Goldin. How exciting.
We are very lucky to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, totally. I'm very, very excited.
And so excited because her book is just launching, Undaunted. You just wrote a book too.
I just wrote a book. It's right here. It's coming out actually this week. So very, very excited.
It is so exciting. So, I mean, I love having on inspiring women and women who have been like knocked down and told they couldn't do it, and someone who achieves. I mean, I feel like that's half the reason I do things, because people tell me I can't do it. So I just want to start with about how you started Hint Water, because I've seen you were 45 pounds heavier. You said that you drank a lot of diet soda. So just start there and tell everybody how you came up with the idea.
Yeah, so it was a little over 15 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
I know, which I can't believe. But yeah, and I never thought that there was anything wrong with my diet soda that I was drinking every day. And finally, I just got to a point where I just, like, my energy levels were low, my skin, I had developed terrible adult acne that I was just really trying to figure out. And then I had this weight that was just like continuing with every pregnancy that I had. I gained weight. And that's when I finally just decided, I was in between jobs, and I really looked at like everything that I was eating, but never really paid attention to what I was drinking. And that's when one day, you know, the can of Diet Coke in particular was just staring me in the face. And that's when I really looked at all these ingredients, and I thought, gosh, like, I care more about what I'm putting in my car than I do what I'm putting into my own body. And that's when I just decided I'm going to try and just quit, and then just start drinking plain water. But I really, after making the shift, I realized that water was just so boring to me that it was just, I aspired to be a water drinker, but I just wasn't really doing it. And that's when I started slicing up fruit and throwing it in water. And, as you mentioned, I had extra pounds on me. And after 2.5 weeks, I lost over 20 pounds.
Wow.
By giving up the diet soda.
Who would think that diet soda would even hold weight on you? I mean, so that's people don't realize that.
I know. Yeah. And that's the thing that, again, this was 15 years ago. I would, share with friends, because even 20 pounds, it's a lot of weight. Like,
that is. People don't realize it. I just lost 10 pounds and I feel so much better.
Yeah. And it was just, it was crazy. People would say to me, like, what are you doing? Like, and initially, like, you look pretty sick, because when it comes off that fast, you're just like, people are like, gosh, like, are you okay? And I said, I'm fine. I feel great, but I'm just, my body was just adjusting at this point. And I really didn't believe that it was the diet soda either. It's a longer story, and one that I talk about in the book, but, I really had believed at that point that it, maybe I was really sick, and maybe that's what was going on. And then, once my body adjusted, and after 6 months, I lost over 50 pounds in, 6 months. And that's when I really started looking at these diet sweeteners and how, so much has come out in the last few years around them, including the fact that, they often cause you to overeat. I wouldn't even say that I was going that far, but it was just the sweetness that I was really craving all the time was really, kind of stemming from this diet soda addiction. And I think, unfortunately, there's just, it's sad. I mean, you look at diseases like type 2 diabetes today, which was tiny. It was like 2% of the population had type 2 diabetes 15 years ago. Today, it's like 45%.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
And so many people who, have this chronic illness are, so quietly, like, almost embarrassed that they've gotten it, because they, go to the gym, they run, they eat, they eat and shop healthy, whatever. And, I think, like, the key thing is that their body isn't sure how to metabolize a lot of these diet sweeteners. And so I really become an advocate. And part of what I talk about in the book too is, what a lot of people know, but still a lot of people don't know. It's that, what you're putting into your body actually makes a huge difference in your health, even if you're sort of a ticking time bomb, as I was. I think it's something that everybody needs to pay attention to.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even realize that. That's so good. So tell me, you started boiling fruit and putting your water because you didn't like the way it tasted. So I mean, that's like so
crazy,
interesting,
right?
Yeah, that's just so crazy. Were you giving it to friends?
Yeah, so I mean, I was giving it to myself and to my family initially, and then, I'd walk out the door and I'd have like a half a pomegranate in my water, and friends would be like, what do you have in your water? And I'm like, oh, it's just, helps me drink more water. And that's when, after a while, I mean, you have this beautiful, like, colorful thing in your water, and friends would notice it. And then finally I went to my local fancy store that had just opened in San Francisco, Whole Foods, and it was so beautiful and everything was wonderful in there. And I thought, this is the kind of place that should have a product like this. And I was shocked to see that everything that was calling themselves water was kind of healthy perception versus healthy reality. I mean, if you remember, like 15 years ago, it's when vitamin water was, super big, and just kind of everyone was discovering it. And I was shocked to see that vitamin water had more sugar in it than a can of Coke. Yet people didn't even read the label because it was like vitamin and water. So it's health. And I really at that point started thinking, that there's so many words that encourage people to equate it to health. And mine was diet, that I was fooled by for so many years, and how people, they just don't even read labels because they think that they're healthy and better for you. And so, I looked for this product on the shelf and it wasn't there. And then I just decided, while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next, then maybe I would just go and develop this product. But I call myself an accidental entrepreneur because
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, because I wasn't even sitting there as a kid or, working in Silicon Valley at, some tech companies. I wouldn't say like one day I'm going to go start a company. I mean, for me, it was like, it just bothered me that health was something that was just so hard for people. I mean, look at how much money people spend on, diet sodas or vitamin waters or, or diets, right?
Yes.
Like it's crazy. And I thought, people want to do it, right? They want to eat healthy and drink healthy, but there's so many roadblocks that are preventing them from actually understanding how to do that. And it's just so hard that oftentimes people just quit, right? Too.
They do. It's so much easier. Like, you go out, people drink a Diet Coke, or they order something. It's so much easier. There's no even healthy options in restaurants to order a drink.
But that's the thing, I mean, that I learned, and part of what I talk about in this book too, is that I just never realized from a consumer perspective how, like, the decks are so stacked against consumers into actually understanding, like, or actually getting access to healthy things. I mean, there's over 2,000 beverages in the beverage industry. I didn't know that when I started this company. But like, how many of those do you see in your local store? Like maybe 60, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, it is incredibly hard to get on the shelf. And I mean, it's sort of a longer discussion, but in every category, these, large companies basically, they're called category captains, and they own real estate in these stores. And so, you sitting at home wanting to have, healthy products for you and your family, it's just really challenging because you can't get access. I mean, forget about, if you live in an area that might not even have the Whole Foods of the world, right? It's just incredibly hard to actually, get access. So it's another story of kind of the building of Hint. Today, we're the largest private non-alcoholic beverage in the country that doesn't have a relationship with Coke, Pepsi, or Dr. Pepper Snapple. And over 50% of our business, 55% of our business is direct to consumer, which is really what I grew up in. And so I think that, access to healthier foods, while, stores are great for people to go to, I think that, what we've seen, especially during the pandemic, is that, consumers are willing to go online and buy things online if they're better for them and they know about them.
No, I think that's genius. So when you started Hint, it's so hard to break into the industry. So many people who listen to us, there's always just like, they come up with an idea, and it's just, how did you even know? Did you immediately go direct to consumer? Were you just like, did you want to start selling Whole Foods? Like, what was it, the transition? I just want to know that part before we talk about Undaunted, because I'm dying to get into that as well.
So I was, I was making it in my kitchen and boiling the fruit down, as you mentioned earlier, and Whole Foods just kind of seemed like this obvious place. I don't know, like I didn't pick it for there was no huge strategy behind it. It was like, oh, this seemed like it was like a place where they might carry my product. And I got it in, actually, somewhat of a funny story to many. I was pregnant with my fourth child when I had decided that I was like writing the business plan and I was going to go and get it on the shelf at Whole Foods. And then there's always delays in production. And so the product didn't actually show up at my doorstep, which, we were actually making it in a plant in order to have enough product to put it on the shelf at Whole Foods. And so it showed up the day before I was having a planned C-section. And so I decided the morning of my planned C-section that I was, my husband said, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to brunch? Do you want to go on a walk? And I said, no, I want to go to Whole Foods and see if I can get it on the shelf at Whole Foods. And so when I went to Whole Foods that day to see if they would take it, the gentleman who was stocking the shelves, who was making decisions, I had met him once before, and he said, wow, you're super pregnant. And I was like, I know. And he said, when are you delivering? And I said, this afternoon at 2:00. And 10 o'clock. And my poor husband was like backing up into the fruits and vegetable aisle thinking, oh my God, she's really going there right now and going to explain that it's exactly what a planned C-section was. And so sure enough, for the next 15 minutes, I educated this nice guy on, what a planned C-section was versus a vaginal delivery. And he thanked me at the end. And, and my husband comes back and he was like, okay, are we done? Like, I cannot even believe you've had this conversation. And so that's what happened. We got it on the shelf that day. I think he, felt a little sorry for me and was happy also that I took the time to educate him on childbirth. And then I went and had my son Justin, and then the next day he called to say that it was that the product was gone. And I didn't even still think that anybody would buy the product. I thought somebody maybe stole the product that we had left for him. And we went through 10 cases, that day. And so, the story, the Undaunted, overcoming doubts and doubters, is not only about the doubts, but also about the, just the journey of everything from, building a company that is now what it is today, but also, all of the challenges and all of the risks. And
I want to know more about that. Undaunted. I mean, it's very inspirational because I think a lot of people don't realize what it is to own your own company and how you do live it 24 hours a day, and how there are so many naysayers and people who beat you down. I mean, I feel that way.
And also we beat ourselves
ourselves up.
That's the hardest thing.
Yes.
We're our own worst enemy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first of all, I clearly had doubts, and there were, plenty of doubters. I think whenever I always say to entrepreneurs today that the key thing that I learned is that if you don't believe in yourself, then no one else will. And, family
I say
members,
that a lot
friends,
too.
like they'll jump on your bandwagon in like 2 minutes, right? Because they love you, right? And so they're like, yeah, you shouldn't do it. Like, that's not the right thing to be doing, or whatever. So there's definitely the story about that. But in addition, I just felt like over the last, few years, I've been out speaking about building Hint, and I would run into people or they would write to me and they would share how, obviously had way more confidence, or I never had any fears, or I never had any failures. And I thought, who are you talking to? I mean, I certainly, have fears. I certainly have had failures. I've had many doubts and many doubters. And the difference between, me and them is really that I tried. And I'm okay with actually failing, right? And I think that that's the story, with you guys and with successful people,
Yes,
right?
yes.
You just go try, and you're not really sure how it's ultimately going to work out, but I feel like the more stories you have that you can look at in your rear view mirror, the stronger you become, right? And the more you can sort of help people to recognize that they just do have to go and try and see what ultimately, comes of it. And so I felt like I was doing a ton of traveling just in building the company. And so I started journaling for the last 4 years, and I had no idea how to write a book. I had, I didn't have an agent even at the time. I just thought it was, let me just start writing. And that's when I really, realized that there's just a lot of information in here that could potentially inspire people to just go out and do it. I also feel like, especially with female entrepreneurs, that there's this, idea of unicorns and failures, and there's nothing in between, right? Like it, and
Yes.
I've always viewed the world as, it's, people are so much more interesting when you know more about their journey, right? And how
Yes,
they got
I
there
agree.
and what they've been through. And so it's, that was my main purpose in writing this book, is hoping that maybe people would come across it and they would be inspired and say, God, if she can do it, I can do this too. And I agree. Like, I think more and more people should go try, and more people should stop putting up walls in front of themselves and saying, I can't do it. I can't, raise money because I'm a woman, or, I can't do it because I have, too many kids, or,
Yeah, I mean, look at you with do you have 4 children?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 4 children's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids. Yeah.
That's a
And
lot
they're
of kids.
older, and they're older now, but
Yeah, but they weren't then. You were giving birth. I mean, they weren't.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, I have 2 girls and 2 boys, and it's, something else I talk about in the book too, that, my son, who's 18 now, I mean, he's like been here the whole time watching this journey. And,
He must be so proud of you.
he is, but also, like, I think he's also in a time when there aren't very many female CEOs. He asked me back in 2012 when he saw Sheryl Sandberg talking about, the fact that there aren't many female CEOs. And he looked at me at the dinner table and he said, Mom, like, there's not very many female CEOs, but you've always been a CEO. Like, why is that there aren't more CEOs? And, I thought, where are we going with this conversation? And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, I just don't get it, because women actually do a great job. Like, I really don't understand. And so I also feel like, as women, we can also show our kids and change their mind about what is supposedly, not okay or not normal in the world, and really being a role model for them.
It's so interesting because I feel like a lot of women that we've had on the podcast also have had, same as you, after that children, it gives you like such a second wind almost, like I can do this, like I am unstoppable. And that's why it always baffles me that, women want, feel like that they can't be a mom and be a CEO and be pregnant. We had the founder of Proven Skincare, Ming, and her co-founder had to hide the fact that they were pregnant when
to
they
get
made
funding,
a
to get funding
to venture capitalists, and that really
which was really
me.
It was very unfortunate that they had to do that.
Yeah.
Was it hard for you to get funding for Hint when you first started?
So it's another thing that I, think about a lot, that and somewhat, laugh again in the rear view mirror looking at it, but I never was going to allow myself to not be able to succeed by believing that I wasn't going to be able to get funded. I've never been a man, so I have no idea if it would have been easier to get funded. Full disclosure, I hate raising money at every point along the way. I get
it. I hate asking for money. I hate going for money. I get the
hate
feeling.
it. And
I feel beholden. I don't like being beholden to someone else.
Totally. And so, but I think that there's a lot of other options today if you just go out and try. I also believe that, this idea, like, people decide that they're not going to go and start a company because it's too hard to raise money. I'm like, you haven't even gotten out of the gate yet, and you don't believe you're going to be able to do it. You won't be able to build a company. You won't be able to raise money. Like, you have to believe that you're going to go do it. And I think that, in today's day and age, if you just start small and make little pieces of progress along the way. I mean, somebody was asking me earlier today, like, how does a, food or beverage company go and start today? Like, what would you do if you didn't have any money to go and start a company? And I'm like, look, you can start small online. 15 years ago, while there was, a few categories that were doing, business online, beverage just wasn't one of them. And so I think in today's day and age, there's a lot more options, and you can figure out whether or not you can get traction, and showing that you've actually got traction, that the consumer wants your product, is something that any investor would be interested in.
Yeah. And I think that's an easier way to raise money, especially that's easier now. 15 years ago, you didn't have that option. I'm sorry, you are still privately owned. You still own your company.
Yeah, I mean, we have investors though.
Yes, of course.
In the company. Yeah, we have investors in the company, but we still, the first few years, actually, we were able to, put our own money into the company, which I think just allows you to be able to grow the company kind of the way you want it grown too. And then also, get a higher valuation because you've actually got some traction. And we had a lot of individual investors. We don't have any venture capital or private equity in the company. We have over 100 investors. Actually, I'm proud to say 60% of those investors are women.
I love that.
Yeah, who have invested. A lot of Silicon Valley investors as well, but also, John Legend invested 10 years ago. He picked up a bottle at Starbucks and called me on the 1-800 number line. And
oh my God, did you almost? That's such a great story.
Well, I didn't know who he was, and I said, I'm sure you're very famous. And
okay, that is really funny.
Nice guy, but I just am a little clueless, and I don't really know. And he started laughing, and he's awesome.
Did he sing for you right away? Or
no, he didn't. But remember, 10 years ago, I mean, he was, not sort of who he is today.
No. 10 years ago, I mean, that is so funny.
I mean, this is before Chrissy,
No, I know. I feel like his first out, because I was still married to my ex-husband 10 years ago, and I remember having his C day.
Yeah.
That his C day 10 years ago.
I know, right?
That is so great.
So awesome.
I love that.
But again, having people who invest in your brand that, people have asked me for years, how do you get John to put a bottle of Hint on, the piano bench? He always has it on the piano bench. And I'm like, he just does. It's not in his, you
don't have to ask him. He likes it. He drinks it. It's his. And it's authentic. He's invested in it because he loves the product. That's why he does it.
Yeah. And so we've never had, I don't know, influencers, or we've had like these people have always come to us and wanting to like invest in the brand because they want it to be successful, you know, and they, you know, we send them a case of hint a month. They buy a lot more than that, but it's really, you know, again, we didn't know what the rules were or what we should do. We just sort of, you know, want people who are invested in the brand to, you know, really like be able to speak to it more than anything and why they do it. And it's just very natural for them to be able to do that.
I'm obsessed with these pair glasses. Pair, P-A-I-R, like a pair of glasses.
Yes, Pair Eyewear. These are incredible. It's the first direct-to-consumer customizable glasses for kids. And also Marge and Lexi were wearing ours now.
Yes. I mean, I'm literally obsessed with these because you know why? You could change them out. You don't have to take off the glasses and something just clicks like onto the front. It's actually crazy. I have a little glitter pair on. You can't see me, but you can hear them clicking right on. So they come in blue light, they come in prescription, and they come in sunglasses. This is like the best idea I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's great. And again, like so many people we've had on the podcast, this came out of parents realizing that there was a need for something in the market. They asked tons of families, over 500 families, you know, what they could do to reimagine children's eyewear, and children couldn't understand why they could change their glasses every day, the clothes every day, but they couldn't change their glasses. So Pair was born. You take one pair of glasses, and then it comes with extra little pairs that click right over the top, little magnets.
Yeah, and you could change your look at all times. They even have glasses that for Marvel, like licenses for Marvel. It's so great.
So you could have superhero glasses.
Yeah.
If you're into the NBA,
I mean, how great is that?
NBA glasses. They had tie-dye glasses.
Tie-dye. I mean, my favorite's still the glitter. I'm sorry. Who doesn't love glitter glasses?
I love this.
And you know what? They're reasonable. Children's prescription glasses are normally $300. These are $60. And with $60, you literally get 3 pair.
You do. And it's really fun to choose your pairs online.
3 pair. And then, I mean, 3 different styles. I mean, how crazy is that? So you have 3 different looks for $60.
It's amazing.
For our listeners,
you even get a bigger discount.
Yeah.
Get your first pair for just $48 when you use code CAVIAR on paireyewear.com. That's PAIR eyewear.com, code CAVIAR.
So would you ever sell to a big company? It's just your baby and you feel like I could not give it up to somebody big?
You know, my mission has always been to really help people get healthy. I mean, I saw what had happened to myself and my family. And when I really realized early on that, you know, this was like not something that, you know, a large soda company was really interested in doing, was really getting me healthy. That's when I decided I need to go build this. I can't say that I would never sell. I think that for us, we've just been really on a different mission than so many of these other soda companies out there. And, you know, today we're in 30,000 locations nationwide. We've built, frankly, what no one has been able to do. I mean, there's been many companies that have been acquired, you know, by the large soda companies, including Vitamin Water and Honest Tea and so many others. And, you know, they've all reached out to me over the years and said, you know, we could never figure out how to get our company past a certain point, and you're past that, and you guys have done it. And a lot of the ways that we've done it have just been because of time and, you know, history. Like, you know, direct to consumer was not there, you know, years ago. And so I think like that's been, you know, worked in our benefit. And that's where I came from. Prior to this, I ran AOL's e-commerce and shopping partnerships for 7 years, and, you know, and really saw it from the beginning and built it into $1 billion business for AOL. So I had that background, but honestly, when I started, you know, Hint, I never thought, okay, I'm going to turn this into, you know, something that we sell online and we do big business online. And that was never it. I mean, I really stumbled upon that really by accident when we started working with Amazon a few years back after, you know, I won't give away the whole book, but after a huge failure at Starbucks, when they kicked us out of Starbucks. And
they kicked you out of Starbucks?
Yeah. So we went into We went into 11,000 locations in Starbucks, which was massive. I mean, a definite high point in the calendar. And then after a year and a half, we were doing super well. And, you know, they had told us like certain goals that we had to meet. We were triple that number. And so when they reached out to us to share with us that they were going to start putting food in the case, which was like a higher, you know, ring amount and higher margin businesses. It was a really bad news for me, right?
No, that's terrible
for my company. But another thing that I share with people is that was 40% of our overall business that, you know, we had like thought we were doing really well and everything's going great. And then the next day it wasn't. And I had 6 months worth of inventory that I was responsible for. And I had investors that I was, you know, responsible for making sure that we weren't spending their money, you know, in the wrong way. And here, like, it just goes away. And I'm like, wait, you can't do that. And actually they could, right? And there was like nothing holding them from not doing that. And so it was right for their business. It wasn't right for my business. And after a couple of weeks, I was trying to figure out exactly what to do with this product that was going to go bad in our warehouse. And then Amazon reached out to us and said that they had been buying our product in Starbucks, and they loved it and they wanted to work with us, and they were really going to start really putting the gas on this grocery business that they had, and they wanted to know how quickly we could get them product. And I said, well, there's
amazing
product in the warehouse. So we became one of the number one products on Amazon Grocery and then Amazon Prime. And we were, you know, it was a subscription business basically waiting to happen. I mean, we were already really big in like the Googles and the Facebooks and had really grown in a lot of these tech firms that were, you know, a lot of these people weren't grocery shopping. They were like going on and buying their favorite products on Amazon. But beverages just really weren't being sold at that time. So anyway, it's interesting because I look back on that and I tell the story in the book that basically, I don't know that Amazon would have reached out to us if we weren't in Starbucks. And, you know, here, right? Like where
it's true.
You know, it's a story when, you know, challenges happen along the way. You have to kind of look back and, you know, I definitely, you know, think about the idea that 40% of my business could go away tomorrow. I mean, that was really stupid, right? To put that much, you know,
but it made sense at the time. You know, it made sense at the time, but it's just at the time you couldn't diversify, and you know, it got you other avenues.
Yeah, but I do think it's a lesson for entrepreneurs not allowing, you know, one channel of business to get so big that
I know the feeling. It's happening.
Right. And the risk, right, is huge, and especially when somebody controls, you know,
your whole life and your destiny,
the levers.
Yes.
Right. The levers, it's not a good feeling. And so today, that's just not something that we do because we learned through that experience. We lived through that experience. But in addition, the relationship with Amazon, we're still in Amazon and they're awesome. But, you know, what I realized after dealing with Amazon was that it's, you know, they're no different than a Whole Foods or a Kroger or Publix or, you know, any of our other retailers that we deal with. It's their data. Like they buy my product and they put it in the stores. I don't know that you are my customer. And so I couldn't actually have that relationship with the consumer. And so that's when it gave me the idea that I should actually start our own direct to consumer business on drinkhint.com. And, you know, as I said, like that business is 55% of our overall business now. And we have a relationship with the consumer. And so, you know, I also share that at the beginning of the pandemic in mid-March, when stores were having huge challenges of keeping our product on the shelf, I went back to our list of consumers, over 1 million consumers that have purchased from us. And I sent an email saying, you know, hey, like, how are you? And if you're having a problem finding our product on the shelves, we're working on it and we're trying to get it on the shelf as fast as possible. But you can also go into our website and buy on drinkhint.com. And we had like a 60% response rate to that. I mean, it was crazy.
That's an amazing response rate.
Right. And so, and so again, like what's fascinating is as that business has grown, our retailers have also grown because there's more people now that are, going back into stores now, and they're looking for the product, and they're like, why don't you have Hint? And so it's become, they work hand in hand off of one another. And so I go back to that story and, that failure with Starbucks, and, it's just another data point for consumers to recognize, like, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, instead, just learn from your journey and recognize that you're going to have challenging times, and you're going to make wrong decisions, and hopefully it won't take your business. But instead learn from those things and just do better going forward.
Believe me,
right?
I know. No, exactly. It's like we had a huge Walmart business at one point with tech accessories.
Yeah.
We were the first females in tech accessories, and they just decided they're going to, change it and do it themselves. And that was it. A big chunk of our income went down, and you have to be able to pivot. And that's what's so, so important. You pivoted. And I think that's teaching people that, but it's true. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket is such a majority of that. Like, we have to diversify, and that's what
you're going to learn. You'll learn from that. Right.
But I would rather people learn from our mistakes at this point. I hate seeing it happen to anybody.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what I mean. Like, I think the more we can share about, stuff that we've done that was just like stupid or whatever. I mean, or, that you're like, I should have known, or if I would have done that. And what's interesting is I didn't intend to write a book that did this initially. I just started journaling and started writing, very honestly about what my experience was. And then, as the early reviews have come out around this book, I mean, people are saying this is like the most, authentic, deep, you're really sharing how you felt about things too. And I mean, I didn't like, Howard Schultz very much when I heard like it was a directive from his office that he was going to be putting sandwiches in. It wasn't helping my business. But then I realized that it really, like, I always hated the saying, like, it's not personal. And I'm like, okay, like, I may have to shut my company down. It's very, very personal right now.
Yes, it's very personal.
Yeah. It's very personal, but it's
but my investors, exactly.
But it's his business. It's a chess game, right? And I think that's what it boils down to. And I think it's even true for investments. I think a lot of the reason why, women don't ultimately, turn whatever Silicon Valley venture capitalists over to be their investors is that a lot of these ideas, whether it's, Hint or I don't know, like pantyhose or some other idea that they just can't get their arms around. It's just that they just don't get it, right? It doesn't mean that it's wrong. And you just have to figure out where else can you ultimately get the capital. And I think more and more, it's another reason why women need to be supporting women, because there's some ideas that might be just a little crazy, right? But they actually be really good businesses. And I think that more and more women are doing that for each other.
I know, which is so important. And I just want to quick touch on your podcast. Because you do your podcast, which is kind of similar to our podcast. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah. So I started it about 3 years ago, and it's called Unstoppable with Kara Goldin. Although we're right in the middle of a switch, we're turning it. There's a few other Unstoppable. So we decided to do the Kara Goldin show with Unstoppable guests, but it's still the same show.
Great. Yes.
Yeah. And basically it was, I just started interviewing people that I just thought had really great stories. And, what I found along the way was that I would feel like they would have these amazing brands that they had built, kind of like how did they build it? But then ultimately what I would find was that there's just these little stories where, I would ask stories like, did you think you were ever going to go under? Did you ever doubt yourself along the way? And those were almost the more interesting nuggets. Even interviewing people during COVID. I mean, we do the podcast runs on Mondays and Wednesdays, and people would have the craziest stories along the way where, like Amy Errett, who is the founder of Madison Reed, she talked about, like, prior to this time, she used to talk about, like, oh, I get all of my product made in Italy. And she's like, now, like, yes, I do stuff.
I know.
And I want it here in the US because it's more dependable to have it here. I feel like these conversations are just ones where people are, they want to know. They want to know more, like, about the hard stuff. It's more of a, you know, like you and I are talking right now about sort of the challenges. It's not just about getting,
it's not just about the wins, because I think to get to the wins, you need to know the hard stuff.
Totally.
People think there's overnight success, and it's not the case. It wasn't like, you know, you woke up the next day and Hint was everywhere. It's a long road, and people don't realize that.
Yeah. And I think it is a long road, and it's not perfect, but I do believe that being an entrepreneur too, while it is, you know, you can make a lot more money in a lot of other professions, especially early on. I feel like it is something where you can kind of control your own destiny, and you have to, you know, trust your gut a little bit along the way. And, you know, there's no rule book that says, okay, in order to get a product on the shelf, this is the thing you need to do. People have lots of differing opinions about it. And all I can do is really share my own story of how it happened.
I know. So I just want to, we always ask people these 3 questions when we're on the podcast. And I feel like you've given such these advice. So we say, we're very entrepreneur real. And I feel like you've given such real advice. What's like your most real entrepreneur advice? Like, you know, not a business plan, but just like the nitty gritty, like like if you give one solid piece of advice.
I would say that no great entrepreneur that I know actually has, they don't have the roadmap, right? Everybody from, you know, myself to Sarah Blakely to Steve Jobs, right? Like, they didn't have the roadmap. They had a lot of doubts. They had a lot of doubters, but they ultimately tried, right? And like, every day they would do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then suddenly they were like, whoa, I've actually done a lot. I mean, I never like sat there and said, okay, one day I'm going to be in 30,000 stores. Like, you know, I'm still like, is that a lot? Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It seems like a lot to me, but I have no idea. And so I think like that is really the key thing that I've learned, that what seems impossible initially is a lot of other people thought it was impossible too. And if you have an idea, you just have to figure out a way to, you know, get it to market in a very reasonable way and start making progress and try.
That's great.
So
we always say Marge is 50% determination to 50% delusion. And that was good to her success. So how do you feel like your percentages fall?
It depends on the day. Like, I can't, you know, somebody said to me, like, how do you stay balanced? And I'm like, you know, depends on the day. Some days I'm not balanced at all. Like, you know, with running a company and launching a book right now at the same time is crazy. Right. And so I think it just depends, you know, how you view it. But clearly, you know, the people with the vision, like, you know, I think that's not something that is sane, right? Most of the time.
That's what I say. I think people misconstrue when I say delusion. They're like, oh no, I'm 100% determined. I'm like, I think you're missing the point.
Yeah, it's not
like
a negative.
It's not a negative. I think the delusion is a positive thing. Because if you, like you were saying when you first came on, if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe it.
100%. It starts with you, and you have to, that's the number one thing that you need to focus on initially. So, and yeah, so it's, I'd love it if you guys picked up a copy. And actually, if you go to undauntedthebook.com, and you can, that is directly on our site. And we have a promotion through the end of Friday of this week. So if you buy the book, you get a free case of Hint.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
That's the best promotion ever. Undaunted with a free case of Hint. Everybody better run to the website.
Yes.
Why not, right? So yeah, so super great. Well, thank you so much, you guys.
I mean, I'm going to be drinking nonstop. I'm going to stop because Kara, I finally just got a new kitchen. So it's going to be stocked with hint water.
I have more than a handful of people who, in a remodel of their kitchen, they put a special refrigerator for hint. So
yeah, I have I
that.
finally have refrigerator drawers. So I have like a beverage drawer, and
I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. All right. Bye-bye.
well, Cara was unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And again, we're so tricked as consumers that things are healthy
When they're not.
And it's scary.
It is. And she just enlightened us so much. And I think she's just so inspirational about what she had said. And she developed a product because there was a need in the market. And the way she got her investors, and 60% of them are women, which I absolutely love.
And the happenstance of John Legend becoming an investor.
John Legend just called up. I would love John Legend. Feel free to call me.
Yeah, call us. We're here.
Yes, I just thought
Anytime.
that was so great, and I'm so excited to read her book Undaunted because it's so inspirational, such great stories, and it's going to be amazing. Everybody has to go to the website because you're going to get a free case of hint with it this week.
Yes, so get that in before Friday so you can make the most of that special offer.
Yes, and it's really about the journey. There's no overnight success, and I think once you guys read her book, you're really going to feel inspired to start your own company.
Yes, and don't take the no's as no's. The no is a temporary until you find someone to give you a yes.
Yes, because you have to believe in yourself, and then everything else, it just, falls into place eventually.
With hard work.
Hard work.
Blood, sweat, and tears also.
Okay, keep dreaming, caviar dreamers.